12 to 14 months. That is what Nissan's own executives said they had left to survive. Not an analyst, not a short seller, not a journalist writing a dramatic headline. The people running the company, on record, in the Financial Times, and the brand that built the GTR, that invented the mass-market electric vehicle, that gave 50 years of Japanese reliability to buyers who never once questioned whether their Altima would start in the morning, is now counting the months it has left. Not because of a recession, not because of a global pandemic, not because tariffs arrived overnight and blindsided everyone equally, not because demand for their vehicles collapsed without warning, because a set of decisions made over 7 years, each one compounding the last, eroded the company from the inside until what was left could not sustain itself. This is not a story about a brand that ran out of luck. This is the story of a brand that ran out of time because it burned through every second chance it was given and called it a strategy. But to understand how Nissan ended up here, you need to understand where it all began. You need to understand what was real. There was a moment not that long ago when Nissan felt genuinely inevitable. The year 2017. Global sales above 5.8 million vehicles. US sales hit a record 1.59 million units. The Rogue crossover set an all-time annual sales record with 403,000 units, a 22% jump in a single year. The Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi alliance was producing more vehicles annually than any other group on Earth. Carlos Ghosn, the man who had literally rescued Nissan from near bankruptcy in 1999, who built the most ambitious cross-continental automotive alliance in history, was celebrated in boardrooms and business schools as a genius of industrial leadership. Nissan had also launched the Leaf in 2010, the world's first mass-produced fully electric vehicle, years before Tesla was a household name in most markets. Japanese reliability, cutting-edge technology, a global alliance that made the company feel structurally untouchable. And the product portfolio was deep: Rogue, Altima, Sentra, Frontier, Titan, GTR. The numbers said Nissan had figured something out that nobody else had. Everyone believed them. That was the problem. But there was a crucial difference between what the organization could do and the man keeping it together. And in November 2018, that difference became impossible to ignore. Carlos Ghosn was arrested at Tokyo Airport, charged with financial misconduct, removed as chairman, and with him went the gravitational center of the entire organization. What followed was not a company adjusting to a leadership transition. It was a company discovering that one man had been holding contradictions together by force of will, and that without him, those contradictions had nowhere to go but outward. Hiroto Saikawa took over, then admitted to his own pay improprieties, and resigned a year later. A chief operating officer departed in 2023. A CFO stepped down in late 2024. Makoto Uchida, the CEO, who stood at a press conference and declared emergency mode in front of the world, was gone by April 2025. 3 CEOs in 6 years, each one inheriting a deeper hole. The profits of 2017 were not the product of a brilliant strategy built to last. They were the product of Ghosn's personal authority, masking a company that had no clear identity without him. Picture yourself behind the wheel of a 2022 Nissan Rogue. Comfortable ride, reasonable price, nothing actually wrong with it. Now picture the Toyota dealership 2 miles away with a 6-month waitlist on the RAV4 Hybrid. The Honda lot clearing Accord Hybrid stock in days. The Kia showroom fielding calls about the Sportage Hybrid before it even arrives on the lot. American buyers had shifted, quietly, completely, and permanently toward hybrid vehicles. Not fully electric, not gasoline only, hybrid. And Nissan had nothing credible to offer in that segment. CEO Makoto Uchida said it himself at a November 2024 press conference. The company had failed to foresee how rapidly hybrid demand would accelerate in the United States. That admission matters. This is not a supply chain problem or a quality defect. It is a product strategy failure, written plainly by the CEO on the record. The Ariya, Nissan's flagship crossover EV, arrived late and under-equipped in a market that had already moved past the target. This is educational content based on publicly available industry reporting. For specific vehicle decisions, consult a qualified independent advisor. Nissan built the Leaf in 2010. Think carefully about what that means. While every other major automaker was still debating whether electric vehicles were viable for everyday consumers, Nissan had already put a mass production E-Fi on the road in Japan and the United States. 15 years of head start, 15 years of battery knowledge, 15 years of charging infrastructure relationships and real-world owner data that no competitor had yet accumulated. And today, Nissan's EV lineup cannot compete with Tesla, cannot compete with BYD, cannot compete with Hyundai's Ioniq platform. The brand that showed the world that electric cars could work for ordinary people is now a cautionary tale inside the very category it created. The numbers don't lie. The marketing does. When you build the world's first mainstream electric vehicle and still lose the electric vehicle market a decade and a half later, the problem is not engineering. The problem is a company that stopped believing in what it had built and let the lead dissolve through years of distraction, internal crisis, and strategic drift that nobody in leadership had the authority to arrest. China had been Nissan's most critical volume market outside Japan. Then the numbers arrived and they told a story no press release could soften. Factory utilization rate in China, 45.3%. A factory running at 45% capacity is not a manufacturing operation. It is a cost center with parking, fixed overhead, paid in full, on floor space producing nothing. In the United States, utilization fell to 57.7%. In Japan, 56.7%. The industry break-even threshold sits at 80%. Nissan was running 17 plants at roughly half their designed capacity, while paying the full operational cost of all 17. Then came the Honda merger, announced in December 2024 as a potential alliance that would create the world's third largest automaker. It collapsed 2 months later when Honda proposed that Nissan become a subsidiary, not a partner. Nissan refused, walked away alone. No partner, no anchor investor. Renault already selling down its stake. And the company that had just described itself as being in emergency mode with 12 to 14 months to survive was now negotiating its future on worse terms than it had entered the conversation with. While the factory floors sat half empty in Japan, the United States and China, a second front was opening in the United Kingdom. The Sunderland plant, Nissan's largest factory in Europe, employing 6,000 workers directly with another 30,000 across the surrounding supply chain, now faces the possibility that new EU manufacturing rules will cut it off from the incentives that make it viable. Nissan has warned the UK government directly that the situation could prove existential for the facility. That is not a word a company uses carelessly. Meanwhile, Nissan's joint venture plant in Mexico was producing just 50,000 vehicles per year against a designed capacity of 230,000. Industry analysts have called its closure highly likely. At this moment, 2 simultaneous fronts burning, the company sold part of its Mitsubishi stake to raise emergency cash. That is financial engineering, not a product fix, not a demand solution. Liquidating an asset to fund continued operations while the core problem, that buyers are choosing other brands everywhere at once, continues completely unresolved. If Nissan sells fewer vehicles, its factories run emptier. If factories run emptier, fixed costs per vehicle rise. If fixed costs rise, Nissan must charge more or accept margins too thin to fund new development. If Nissan charges more, fewer buyers choose it over better-equipped competitors at the same price. If fewer buyers choose it, dealers reduce their orders. If dealers reduce orders, Nissan loses leverage with component suppliers. If supplier leverage falls, components cost more per unit. If components cost more per unit, margins compress further. If margins compress further, there is less capital for the next product cycle. If the product cycle stalls, the lineup falls further behind. If the lineup falls further behind, fewer buyers return. They built it to last just long enough. And then the decisions accumulated, and even that stopped being true. You are still making the payment. The plant is still running at half speed. The fixed costs are still full price. And the spiral does not stop because someone new is in the chair. It stops when buyers come back. They have not come back. 3 generations of families chose Datsuns, then Nissans, because the name stood for something plain and durable. It starts. It runs. It does not surprise you with a repair bill you cannot pay. A grandfather who bought a Datsun pickup in 1971 and drove it to 200,000 miles on oil changes alone. A father who handed a '98 Altima to his daughter with the engine still turning without complaint. That trust was not built by a marketing department. It was earned mile by mile across 50 years of not letting people down. 3 generations trusted this brand. 1 decade of leadership collapse, strategic miscalculation, and institutional paralysis broke that. And the nightmare scenario, a Nissan that is nothing but a name on vehicles it no longer fully engineers, assembled in factories closing one by one, sold in markets where buyers have already made a permanent decision, is no longer a projection. The restructuring is filed, the closures are scheduled. The executives who stood at that press conference and said 12 to 14 months have already handed it to someone else and moved on. What they left behind is still here, and it is still running out of time.